Chessington World of Adventures, your passport to another world.
Oh, I am loving those 80s throwbacks right there. Welcome to Theme Park Worldwide and the next video in our Remembering series. In this video, I'm going to be looking back and sharing my memories from and also the history of one of my favourite ever attractions that's operated at Chessington World of Adventures. It is, of course, Safari Skyway. Now, this was an absolutely awesome monorail ride that opened at the park back in 1986. It was actually one of the first additions to Chessington to make it into the theme park that we all know and love today. Now, you got to think back in the 80s, Chessington started off as a zoo. It wasn't about the rides at all. But in 1986, they decided to build Safari Skyway, an aerial monorail ride that would actually take guests to Chessington above lots of the different animal exhibits. And I tell you what, it was certainly a favourite ride of mine. Now, if you've watched the channel for a while, you'll know that I absolutely love all sorts of different transit systems, trains, monorails, boats, whatever it is. But monorails is probably my favourite of all those. So I was really sad when this attraction closed in summer 2015. It did close quite sudden. We didn't really get a chance to say goodbye to Safari Skyway, but I'll be talking more about that later after we look back on these happy memories and of course some on-ride footage that I recorded back in 2012 of Safari Skyway. So here it is, just leaving that station now. The station for this ride was actually located in what was known as Market Square at the time. It's now Adventure Point. Of course, you've got the Adventure Tree Carousel there, lots of different food offerings. But yeah, it used to be known as Market Square. And you had the huge castle building, which was the station. Now, the station, as of 2021, does still exist. If you look at the arcade, what's currently there in Adventure Point, if you look up above that, then that's where you'll actually see the former station. You can still see the operator's cabin for Safari Skyway. The entrance to it was actually up some steps which were just round the corner, just behind the toilets what they've got there, and you walk straight up those and up into the station. Now, of course, once you actually left the station area for this ride, you started to continue over the Mexicana themed area. You get some great views down towards the runaway train as it was at the time. Of course, it later got rethemed into Scorpion Express, and of course Rattlesnake as well, you just see off to the left. And on the right, you pass by the huge castle structure. Now, this was actually the exit to the ride as well. You make your way through the castle turrets, and I really like those. Again, they're still in place at the park to this day, but I'd love to see them do more with those because it's just a nice piece of theming inside the park. Following on from this, it starts to continue over a part of the zoo. Now, not really the major part of the zoo, round at the other end of the park. With this, some of the smaller animals around there, you get a nice bit of an aerial view over them. But of course, over the years, this changed. I didn't ride it until the early 90s when my parents took me to Chessington. And I don't really remember my first time riding it, but I have got a photo of me at 1 year old actually on board Safari Skyway, enjoying myself there with my parents at Chessington. Oh, what amazing memories, just throw back to that at the park. It really is. I did try to find that photo out for this video, but I could not find it at all. We've got photo albums stacked up so high with all different photos in, mainly from theme parks, so it's quite hard to actually find them. But I am in the process of transferring them all over digitally to my computer, and then it means that they'll be easier for videos like this to just pull out and get them all scanned in and ready and stored on a hard drive so I can use them for future videos. But following on from this, in its later years, after the opening of the Sea Life, of course, you made your way round towards the back of the Sea Life Centre, and off to the left you had a view of the Chessington hotels. Of course, they weren't there back when this opened in 1986, but the first hotel opened as a Holiday Inn actually. It later just became the Chessington Safari Hotel, and then of course next to it as well you've got Azteca, that opened a few years after the initial hotel. But yeah, you know, the views from the monorail have changed and adapted over the years, and again, that's one of the reasons I think that the park decided not to go with a full refurbishment of Safari Skyway and actually removed it, all because of expansion. You've got to think, when you've got a tracked ride like that that makes its way around a good half of the park, it can be in the way when it comes to expansion room and changing the whole sort of dynamics of the park. So I can kind of see in a way why they didn't want to spend the money to refurbish it, as much as I wish that they did, because I think it would have been a really good staple family ride still for Chessington, even though the initial idea was an aerial tour of the zoo. As the theme park grew throughout throughout the late 80s and 90s and early 2000s. It stayed as a really staple family ride at the park. It ran multiple trains on there as well. They were only small trains, but you know what? It ran quite a lot of them. In fact, you'll see at the end of this footage here that I captured from 2012, the monorails all stacked up at the end because there was that many of them running around on the circuit. Following on from this point, you then made your way down towards the lodge entrance, of course, down there, the second entrance at the park. You make your way close to that. You get a great view over towards the mansion house that there is at Chessington as well, and all that green open space there that I really do enjoy. Following on from this, you then carried on, raised up to one of the highest points really of the monorail, as you were raised up above some of the animal exhibits. And I'll always remember great memories as a kid looking down and seeing all the animals down below. Now, of course, over the years, the animal exhibits have changed, and I would say they've improved a lot over the years. However, I do remember looking down as a kid and being amazed and seeing it all. As much as I'm a big fan of making the exhibits a lot bigger now, like they have done, and more themes and to fit in, of course, and make it more like a natural habitat for the animals. I'll always remember seeing the gorillas down there from the top, and tigers, lions, all different animals. And you got a really good view actually, because you were high up looking straight down to the left. This was mostly, you can see a bit to the right, but mostly to the left from what I can remember of all the different animals. You also then made your way round and you saw the sea lion area. Of course, that still exists at Chessington, and this is where you can actually still see parts of the Chessington monorail. Now, I've already mentioned that the station and the operator's cabin still exists down in Adventure Point. Well, at the sea lion area, you can still see parts of the track, because if you look now, as of 2021, unless it's been removed this winter since last year, there's a big banner at the back of the sea lion area that is actually held up on to the monorail track. So if you kind of walk around the zoo and look at that back section, you can see part of the monorail track is still in place with the supports that's holding that up. There's also round there a support in place that's got a floodlight on as well. So if you look at that, that was originally a support for the monorail, not for a floodlight like it looks today. So there is little parts around the park where you can still see things. Along with that, down in the floor, you can see where they've just literally concreted or tarmacked over some of the areas where the supports were. They did a good job of hiding the fact they never had a monorail really, unless you know where to look. It's not like the monorail at Blackpool where quite a lot of the track, I'd say maybe 50-60% of the track is still in place, maybe even more than that, and you can see. With Chessington, at least they did try to remove most of it, so we don't look at it and cry and think, oh, we wish Safari Skyway was still here. Following on from that, you then kind of turn around to the right and kind of go back on yourself as you made your way over the lawn area. Now, this was actually my favourite part of the ride because it was really high up. You just had the grass down below, and I'll always remember we used to go on this ride kind of before we had a picnic. So we go on that and then get a nice spot down on the grass underneath the monorail for the picnic, because I've always loved monorail rides and transit systems. My parents, of course, used to take me on them all, and they knew that, yeah, that was the picnic spot right there underneath Safari Skyway. So times were tough back then. My parents took me to these theme parks, but we couldn't afford to be eating out. So, we took a picnic, and I loved that as a kid, sitting there on the grass, watching these monorails come by maybe every 30, 40 seconds. They were, pretty consistent with how many they ran on this ride. You then carried on round to the left. You got some great views again of the mansion house. Of course, it used to be home to Hocus Pocus Hall. That was there when I was growing up. It's now Room on a Broom. There's been lots of different changes over the years, but yeah, I do really like that mansion house in the middle. There's also some of the offices for Chessington upstairs. There's restaurants in there and other facilities that all form part of the park. Following on from this, it carried on straight down, straight towards the Pirate Cove themed area of the park, where you had some great views of Seastorm as well, which was just down there onto the side. Along with that, you then also see the main gift shop, another look up towards Market Square, now Adventure Point, and on the left, you'd see the beautiful carousel. Now, I can understand why they took this carousel out and put the new one in, the Adventure Tree carousel over on the plaza area. But this old one was really nice because it had bubble works on there, it had Vampire with the old trains. It was all them details that were kind of painted on in a way to the side of the carousel that I did really like. It was kind of like a journey through Chessington's history, and when they took that out a few years ago, I remember being quite sad knowing that I used to love that ride as a kid, and they took that out too. Maybe another future remembering video for that one. But yeah, the carousel, you got some cracking views of it from up there on Safari Skyway. And then as you'll see here in the footage, you then started to slow down if there was a train in front of you like there normally was because of how many it ran. And then of course, yeah, you pull into the station, exit onto the right, and then make your way down through the castle structure. But yeah, I absolutely love this attraction. For me, transit rides are perfect for a park. They're relaxing, but normally they work as transportation. With this, it wasn't transportation really. It didn't drop off at another station. It was just a one trip round, but I did really like that. And the aerial views of the zoo, and in later years when I was growing up, the views of the theme park made it one of my favourite attractions at Chessington. And it's probably my second most missed ride, Bubbleworks being first. But yeah, in second place, it'd have to be the monorail. I absolutely loved it. And for me, the really important rides, trains, monorails, boats, all them sort of things are key parts of theme parks in my opinion. And I kind of feel like here in the UK, we fall quite far behind a lot of parks in Europe and America when it comes to public transportation in the parks. You know, I'd just love to see more transport rides. I think they're really convenient, the nice filler rides, high throughput, and can be great transport with multiple stations too. Now, as I've mentioned, parts of the ride can still be seen, the monorail, some areas where the supports have been covered up, and also as well, down by the Sea Line area, where you can still see part of the track and supports. But also, why did this ride actually close? Now, it opened, like I say, back in 1986, so it was an old ride, and then summer 2015 came along, and I heard some rumours at the time that it was going to be closing, and I was quite sad. And then it was confirmed that, unfortunately, the ride really had come to the end of its life. They had having a lot of maintenance issues with Safari Skyway. With it being an old ride, close to 30 years old, of course they found that, you know, the ride needed a lot of constant maintenance. It was breaking down, parts were becoming hard to find, and really with that, I mean, I remember being told at the time from someone who were doing maintenance that the ride could have been saved if basically they completely updated the whole system. It needed updated trains, it needed updated kind of electricity rods that run alongside the track. It needed all that. It would have cost a fortune. And when it comes to doing something like that, are the park really gonna, you know, do it? Because is it going to attract more people in? No, it's not, you know, whereas a brand spanking new ride gets people in. So I can see why it closed. As much as, you know, if it was me, I would have refurbished it. I mean, you look at some of the older monorail rides out there at parks and they do get refurbished, but unfortunately with Chessington that wasn't the case. But you know, let me know your memories. I'd love to know, did you love Safari Skyway just as much as I did? Comment below. I would love to know your thoughts. Maybe you went on it as a kid, maybe you had a picnic on that big open grass. Honestly, I'd love to know your memories. And yeah, do you miss it? Would you like to see them bring in a new monorail in the future? I don't think they will, because like I say, it's hard to, once you've already got a park well established like Chessington, fitting in a large transport ride like that would be very hard, but it could certainly be done if they wanted to. So let me know your thoughts and share your memories in the video comments. As always, there's brand new videos every single day here on Theme Park Worldwide, and thanks for joining me for our latest Remembering video. I'm Sean Sandbrook, and that leaves me with one final thing to say. Get out there and keep on riding. See you in the next video.